Hello there and welcome to another video from Change, Tips and Tools. And here I am again, your favourite brummie, Phil, who hails from Birmingham, England. This video is part 9 and indeed the final video in our second Power BI training series, where we will finish off by creating the capacity, demand, availability and utilization drill through visuals. And make sure you watch all the way through to the end, as I will show you more tricks with DAX to enhance the interactive experience for your users in Power BI. For one last time, let's do this. Okay, let's make a start. Well, we're on a mission today, so I'm going to go at a faster pace now, so hopefully this will be the second series, you will be able to follow along at a faster pace. So we're going to start off with resource capacity here. So again, blank background, I'm going to select the format your report page, canvas background, and I'm going to select this Power BI background template 3, open that. I'm going to take the transparency to 0. There you go. And this is all about reusing assets within the report. So I'm going to go to the portfolio resources page. I'm going to select our filters here on skill set and resource. I'm going to do control copy. I'm then going to go back to resource capacity. I'm going to do control V. There you go. I'm then going to go back to my portfolio resources, and I am going to I want to reuse all of these and one of these summary cards. So let's just select below, go up, and then do control copy with them selected. Go back to my resource capacity page and do control V. Right. So this here, let's change the title. There we go. Let's take this card here. I'm going to go to my properties on general. So on the format, your visual, general, and then properties. I'm going to change that height to 70. Just make it slightly narrower. Then go back to my visual and change the call out value to be 20 font, like so. And with that done, I'm going to take that and do control copy and control V. Now, with that done, I just need to rearrange these on the page. So let's take these buttons and move them underneath the cards. And again, let me just rearrange those. And there you go. If I go to the capacity button, which is the page we're on, and I look at the action's now gone blank because it's actually on that page. So I'm going to change that to be back to portfolio resources. I'm going to go to the style and expand that. And with the default state, I'm going to change that capacity to resources and hit return. Wonderful. I then want a timeline on here. So on portfolio budget, we've got a timeline. I'm going to take this and I'm going to do control copy, go back to the resource capacity and do control V. Now it's asking me this question, do I want to sync it or not sync it? So I want them synced because I want to be able to change the timeline and I want it to affect all pages. So I'm going to select the option sync here, and then I'm going to take this and just make it a little bit smaller like so. And again, just going to move it up with the arrow keys. Wonderful. Now, as far as these are concerned, again, I'm just going to move these over a little, this one over a little bit more. I'm going to move this one over a little bit more as well. That's better. That looks better. So this is going to be our count of named resources. Now, within the resource table, we don't have a count of named resources, so we're going to create something generic. Sorry, we're going to create a new measure. Sorry, that counts how many rows in this table are not generic resources. So I'm going to select this table. On the home ribbon, I'm going to do new measure. I'm going to call it FTE equals. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do count rows, and I'm going to use the filter function to filter. So choose that filter, and I want to within the filter I want a table, so you can see the syntax here. So the table is going to be my resources, table resources, and the criteria is going to be where table resources generic equals n for no in quotation marks. If so, then so I'll close the bracket on the filter, close the bracket on count rows. So if I then hit return, so there's that count, and if I select this card here and I drag it and replace that, and I'm going to call this, rename it for this visual as named resources, so it's really clear what that is, and hit return. Now there is a problem with this as it is. So if I hit architect, for example, it goes blank because there's nothing there against the architect. So I don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put another check against this. I'm going to do an if statement. So with this selected, I'm going to click just in front of the count. I'm going to do alt return for a new line. I'm going to do if open bracket, do alt for the next line. So my criteria is going to be, I'm going to use the ISBLANK function. So ISBLANK. So this is blank equals true, then just put the value 0 in there. However, if it's not blank, then show me what the count is. So let me just take that there and copy that formula there, paste that in. I'm going to do alt return and close the bracket on this statement. And if I then hit return then, and now if I select architect again, it just puts it to 0. Great. Right. Now, as far as the total demand here is, I want now a count of the resources with demand. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is resources with demand table here. I'm going to take that count and replace that. And again, I'm going to rename it for this visual. And this is going to be with demand. Hit return. So now I've got an idea of how many named resources we've got and how many of them have got demand against them. So that's just a summary visual there. So now that I've got that done and I've got these numbers, let's put our visual on here, which is going to be a matrix. So I'm going to select the matrix visual. Let's make this a little bit bigger, well, a lot bigger, so it fills the page. Okay, just take it down a little bit there. Right, as far as the values are concerned, I want in the rows, I'm going to have skill set, and I'm going to have resource in the rows. Now the columns, I want to create a hierarchy so I can drill up and down as far as year, month and week. So what I'm going to do is on the calendar table, I'm going to expand it, and on the year I'm going to right click on it within that table, and I'm going to create a hierarchy. select that. So I've now got this hierarchy here, and if I expand it, you can see the year is in there. So if I right click on month and add to hierarchy, I'm going to add it to this year hierarchy. And then finally on the week, I'm going to right click on that week of year and add that to the year hierarchy like so. So now you can see I've got this hierarchy, and if I take that hierarchy and drag it into my columns, I've now got my year and months. And if I change this drill on to be columns, I just select this to expand. So I've now got my months there, you can see, yeah. And if I take that to, you can see all the 12 months there with that year. Now, as far as the values are concerned, this is my capacity. So I'm going to go to in my calendar, I'm going to take total capacity, and I'm going to drop that in there, and I'm going to rename it for this visual to CAP, short for capacity, and hit return. Okay, and then what I will do is I will then also, I'm going to add the status as well. So on the utilization, I'm going to show the status of their utilization. I'm going to rename for this visual, just call that percentage. Okay, now with that done, if I go to my on columns, if I expand it all, you can see month, year, month, week of the year, and if I go up a level, I can see year, month, and so on. So what I'm going to do now is go to my format visual here. I think column headings, I want them to be bold. As far as the grid is concerned, I want that switched on so I can see the grid lines. And then I'm going to go to general effects. I'm going to make it 40%, the background 40% transparent. I'm going to switch on the border. Let's make that again light blue, and make rounded corners, and switch on the shadow. And I can see with all those interactions that they all work now. So that is my resource capacity layout done. So now I want to set up the drill through. So I've got this matrix table selected. I'm going to, on the visual here, on the add data to your visual, on the drill through, what we want on this is we want to have our resource and skill set in there. So I'm going to go down to my resource table, and I'm going to drag skill set into the drill through, and I'm going to drag resource in there as well. And now from portfolio resources, if I right click on that, I've got drill through to resource capacity. Wonderful, that works. So let's go back to resource capacity. You see this arrow's appeared now, which is the navigation back based on the drill through. I'm going to take that, I'm just going to move it to, let's put it there. Okay. So that's resource capacity done. So we can now look at resource capacity by year, month, and week if we want to. We can look at it by skill set and by individual resources, and we can also see the status against their utilization. So anything that's not green is we want to look at it. Okay, so now let's look at demand. So again, with on the resource demand page, I'm going to do format your report page, canvas background. As far as the image is concerned, I'm going to browse. I'm going to select this Power BI background template 3. Open that. Set the transparency to 0. I'm then going to go back to the resource capacity. Just click anywhere on this page. I'm just going to do Control A to select all the visuals, and I'm going to do Control Copy. I'm then going to go back to resource demand and do Control V. Yes, I do want to sync this slicer up, so I'm going to sync it. Then as far as the demand now, that should be the next one where the action is blank, because we're now on the resource demand. So I'm going to navigate back to capacity this time. So that's the option, capacity. And then I'm going to go to the style. On the default state, I'm going to change that text to capacity. And hit return. This should all be fine. And now let's change our matrix. So I'm going to change the matrix, but I also want to change the filters over here. So let's just make this a little bit smaller. Let's take this one, let's move it down. And then with nothing selected, I'm going to insert the slicer visual. Let's drag this over to here. The size of it. Just move that down. As far as the value in here, I want to be able to filter on whether they're generic or not. So the resource is generic. So I'm going to take the generic from the resources table. I'm going to drop it into there. I'm then going to go to my format your visual, slicer header, make that bold, and then go to general, effects. I'm going to make that 40%. Turn on the border, make it light blue, and make the corners rounded by 10. Don't want the shadow on that, and there you go. And again, with that selected, it should be, if I go to format, edit interactions, that's all fine, and it won't impact these because these are named resources, so it doesn't impact what comes up here. Right. Now that's done, let's change the matrix, because this is going to be made up of, so select the matrix, go to my add data to your visual, and here I want the demand. So I don't want it by skill set, I don't want it by a resource. I want to go to my X portfolio expert table, and I want it by program, and I want it by project, like so. I don't want the capacity, and I don't want the status values as far as utilization. And what I want in here is, because it's demand, I want the total demand dropped in there. So I'm going to drop that in. I'm going to rename it for this visual and just call it demand. Hit return. Okay. And that looks fine to me. Again, check this by columns, drill down by month. We've got the weeks there. I can go up a level, and that's fine. Back to rows. So that is now done for, and I just need to change the title to demand. Done. So now we go to our resource availability. Again, background, sort that out. Change it to 0% transparency. And then go to my resource demand. And again, do Control A to select it all, and do Control copy. Go to resource availability and do Control V. Again, I want it to sync. And this time, because it's the availability, I'm going to select availability. The action here is that we're going to say, right, we'll go to demand this time. On the style, I'm going to change on the default state from availability, I'm going to change that to demand. On that navigation button, return. Now I want to change this table again. All these are exactly the same. Let's get rid of that edit interactions. I'm going to switch that off. And on the actual matrix here, I want the availability and I want the utilization status. So I'm going to get rid of project and program, and I am going to add from the resources, skill set and resources. Now while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go to resource demand, because the one thing that we didn't do on here is we didn't add the drill throughs as far as this is concerned. So obviously I want to be able to look at skill set. I want to be able to look at resources, resource types. I also want to be able to look at category here. I want to be able to drill through on program, and I also want to drill through on project here. Yeah, cool. So just wanted to make sure I've done that. And let's go back to our resource availability and back to this matrix here. And so as far as the so I've got architect and resource here. As far as the rows, I'm going to get rid of the demand. So I want availability. So I'm going to take total availability here and drag it and drop it into values. I'm going to rename this, so shorten that name, so rename it for this visual to avail, so AVAIL, short for available or availability, and hit return. I'm then going to take the status from the calendar, so the utilization status, and drop that in there also. Wonderful. And I'm just going to rename that for this visual, and again change that to a percentage sign. Okay, so I want to put some ragging against this. So remember we did that measure, the availability rag. So on the availability here, I'm going to right click on it, do conditional formatting, choose font color, and it's going to be field value. I want to apply it to the values and totals, and then from my calendar I'm going to choose the availability rag, which is this one here, and click OK. And there you go. So it's color coding all that. Again, I want to add some drill throughs here. So from the resource table here, I'm going to add skill set as a drill through, and I'm going to add resources as a drill through. Wonderful. So that now works. So now finally we need to do utilization. So I'm going to go to my utilization page. Again, I'm going to format the background. So format your report page, canvas background on the image. I'm going to select this Power BI background template 3. Open that. Set the transparency to 0%. Then I'm going to go to resource availability, do Control A to select all, and then do Control Copy. I'm going to go to my utilization, resource utilization, and do Control V. Again, set that sync. Let's change that title there to utilization. Yeah. Did I change the title on the availability? No, I didn't. Naughty. There you go. There you go. Done. Let's go back to the resource utilization. Again, I need to change this now to go to availability. So I'm going to select that navigation button, the action, send that to resource availability, go to the style, change the text on the default state to availability. return. And there you go. So that's done. So now I want to change this here to a utilization. So this is all the same, doesn't need to change at all. I just need to change the availability to my utilization value. So with this selected, let's go to, and let's remove availability value, and let's go to my utilization value here and drop that into values above the percentage. Again, let's rename that for this visual to UTILIZ, short for utilization. Hit return. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that, do conditional formatting, font color. Again, I'm going to use field value, apply it to values and totals, and I'm going to select from the calendar my utilization rag and click OK. Wonderful. And then again, I'm going to put some drill throughs on here. So let's scroll down to resource table. Let's put skill set and let's put resource in there. Yeah. Did that for availability, did I not? Yes, I did. Okay. So that now all pages are complete. So if I go to my portfolio summary here, let's just look at our report for, are there any errors, anything that doesn't make sense, any inconsistencies, to make sure that the report looks consistent as far as look and feel. Is there anything missing? So just looking at my portfolio summary, this all seems to work fine. I can see the drill throughs, etc. That's fine. I think the one thing I would say on this is that what is always good practice is just to say, well, when was this data actually updated? Let me put a text box here, and there you go. And that makes it clear when this data was updated, or the date, the as of date, this data was updated for our users. I think then the rest of it looks fine. If I then go to my portfolio budget, that looks fine. So, but what I'm going to do is take the key from here. So this key here, I'm going to do Control copy, go to my portfolio budget and do Control V, and there it is. Let's drag that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Yeah. I'm going to drop that on the bottom. I'm going to do Control copy, and again I'm just going to do Control V, and I'm just going to move that so it's then up here as well. In fact, just to be consistent, I'm going to move this one to the top also. Yeah. Okay. Just check that. That looks fine. It's got our key. Then let's go to, and again, as far as the filters are concerned, these all seem to work fine. I'm not going to put the, I need to put it once on the portfolio summary just so it's clear there. So let's look at portfolio resources. So again, like that title there. So let's select this one. I don't need to have the resources title, so I'm going to go to general title. Let's just take that resource off the front of the title and hit return, because it's clear that this is on the resources page. Again, I want to put the key there, so let's go to the portfolio summary. I'm going to take this one here and do Control copy, and then just paste it, Control V. And again, I think I'm just going to make that just a little bit smaller, just so, and let's just drop it and just put that at the top there like so. Yeah. Right, so then we've got that key there. If I look at this stuff here, I'll tell you what we can do just to make this more informative as well. So if I select this, so again, I'll just take that off, and if I select this, let's make these data labels dynamic now based on the utilization targets. So I can, on the data labels, so let's go to data labels, I'm going to do it on all the value. On the conditional formatting, I'm going to do it by field value, and let's go to our calendar, and let's take a utilization rag there. Let's take that and click OK, and there you go. Now, so it now color codes the data label. So if I take that, wonderful. Okay, that works. Anything else on there? No. Capacity, I do control, and again, check all your buttons, make sure they all work. Now let's just look at these rows here, because one thing I'm thinking is, I know this is driven off the resource count of resources, resources of demand, but that's not associated to any table. So if I do architect there, if we drill through, it's always going to show that 4. So that doesn't work for me. And I think when a user clicks into here and they drill into this information, they want this to be representative of the filter that's on. Or if they're looking at architects or a name, then they can see this information here is relative or is contextual to that selection. So the way that we need to do that is I need to change this calculation. So I can't use this because it's not associated in our model to any of these filters. So I need to put something in the demand table. So if I expand the demand table, so the first thing is I need to create a number of measures in here to be able to do this. I'm going to select in the table. I'm going to do a new measure, and let's do let's call this count or unique resources, because obviously resources are going to appear multiple times in the table. And I'm going to do a distinct count, and I'm going to do a distinct count of my demand resource, like so. And I'm going to hit return. Now if I select this card here, let's just see what that, so there's the unique resource. If I just drop that in there, I'm now getting a list of the resources. That's a unique count of the resources that have demand in the demand table. But what I want is only, because that'll include both generic and name resources, and I only want name resources in there. So the way that I'm then going to get that information is I'm going to do another new measure. So again, new measure, and I'm going to call this my demand FTE. I can't call it FTE because I've already used that as a measure in this model. Equals. So let's think this through. So I want to use the calculate function. So my expression is going to be the unique resources. That's what I'm basing it on, and it's going to be based on demand. Now what you can see here is I don't have a generic, so I can't do that. So let's just X out of that, and actually let's do a different, I'm going to need a calculated column here. So that's going to have to be table tools. Let's create a new column. And let's call this generic. And it equals related. So related and table resources generic. And close that bracket. And there we go. We've put that column into our demand table. And it's based on the relationships we've created within the model, in our modeling. So now I can do a new measure again. So this is going to be my demand FTE equals, so do calculate, start typing that. So again, it's based on this count, so this unique count of resources, and I only want those resources where the demand generic now, that new column I've created, equals n. No. So let's close the bracket on the calculate. Let's hit return. No errors. So let's take that demand FTE now and let's drag and drop that into that card. So now we've got our demand. If I do architect, wonderful. So we've got one named resource. It's Mary. And there you go. So the filter works there. So let's select business analyst. So I've got two named resources and I've got one with demand, PMO, project manager, SME. Now, I don't want it going blank there. So let's go back to our demand FTE and let's take this and do a copy. So I'm going to do control copy of that. I'm then going to do alt return. I'm going to do if open bracket and then alt return for a new line. And I'm going to use the is blank. So if is blank, so if that is blank equals true, then set it to 0. Otherwise, comma, do the calculation. Yeah. If I then do alt return and close it on the if statement, hit return again. And there you go. So that now works appropriately. So let's rename that. Rename for this visual with demand. Perfect. And then let's go to each one of these now. And let's do the same thing on demand. Let's replace that on here. So let me just do that for resource demand, availability and utilization. And there you go, that's the last one done. So once you've done all your checks, yeah, then I think once you've done all that, we are now ready to publish our report. Save it, remember, save your file because Power BI desktop application does not auto save. I'm going to click publish. Again, it'll ask me that question. Let's hit save. Select that workspace. Click select. And there you go. It's published it. Now I can either hit the got it and then navigate to my workspace from my browser, or I can just click the link here, which I'll do. There is our Power BI report ready to be distributed to our stakeholders. So I have my portfolio budget, I have my resourcing, and I can drill through. So if I go from architect and drill through to, let's say, utilization, and there you go, I can see I've got named resources with demand, so that's good. Hit the back arrow, that's fine. Now have a play with the report within your workspace to satisfy that the report is working as it should before you are ready to start sharing it with your stakeholders. Now, as far as sharing the report, you have a number of options. You can share it via mail, Teams or PowerPoint, or even send a link via an email. So your users and your stakeholders can interact it directly within the workspace. You can also export it. You have a number of options. You can analyze it in Excel. You won't see the visuals, but you can analyze the data. You can analyze it in PowerPoint, either as an embedded image or as an interactive Power BI desktop within that PowerPoint. And you can export it into PDF. So you have a number of options there for sharing your report. However, before you send your Power BI report out to your stakeholders and your intended audience, you need to run workshops to train them how to use the Power BI report once they receive it in whichever format they get it, and make sure that people are comfortable with interacting and drilling into the report, understand the information and how to get the best experience from Power BI. With that said, that is the last video in this training series. I hope you found it helpful and informative, and if so, please click that like, subscribe and smash that notifications button for future content. And as always, I wish you an absolutely wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Please take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video from Change, Tips and Tools. Bye bye now.